We'll just wait. There's a few, I think we have some audience joining us, so we'll just let other people slowly join in. We'll give them a minute. So I think the only people that can actually be heard at the moment are myself and Nikki. Everybody else is on silence, which is slightly a strange experience for us. So I'm just by way of starting today, I just want to say very warm welcome to everybody. Very warm welcome to anybody who's tuning in, who's coming in as an audience member, and hello to all our string students as well. I'd like to just give a really warm welcome to Nicola Benedetti. We're really delighted that you're joining us today. Just before we kick off and start our chat, a couple of just logistical things. We're going to talk for about 30 minutes, and then at 5:30 we'll go straight into the broadcast of the masterclass that Nikki did to the students, and I'll say a little bit about that at the very end. Just in terms of asking questions logistically, in terms of how this will work. If you're tuning in as an audience member, we have a couple of questions that have been sent in already that I'll relay. And also, if you'd like to ask a question over the next half an hour, you can put something on Facebook, and I think somehow it'll get to me in some form or other. If you're a string student, if you want to ask a question, you please just click on the button, because we can't actually hear you and potentially can't see you either. So just click on the button, and I think your hand will go up. The electronic hand should go up, and we'll try and get to your question. So just to kick off first, before we open out, I'll open out to RNCM students in a second. So think of a question, please do put your hand up. But Nikki, it's really great to see you again. And the one thing I just wanted to ask you about was your foundation, because I know you've recently started this really fantastic foundation, and it'd be great just to know a little bit about it and why you started it.
Oh, this is just such a loaded question that I never know where to start. I've been doing things of that nature since I was about 15. So I did my first tour of schools when I was that age, and somehow in all sorts of shapes and sizes and forms managed to integrate a very varied educational type work within a performing career. And through all those years, I'm 32 now, so it's a long time of being kind of put into an enormous array of different environments, whether that be just playing to kids in a school, or talking to music teachers or primary school teachers, or working with a specific program that's set up to create social change through music, or whether it be a college or a university. Over the years, I've just spent time with and spoken to and learnt from and absorbed so much from such a wide variety of people. And, you know, if I think of the years that I've had traveling and playing, actually those human connections that have been built up over that time, that happen off stage, you know, and out of the act of rehearsal and performance, it's one of the single most cherished things that I have in my life, and that I feel is one of the greatest privileges that I've experienced and that I've been kind of gifted, is that communication with so many of those people. And so I put on my first workshop, which had an aim of inclusivity, so as many people as possible that could just about play through something fairly simple, and excellence at the same time. So we had the first one took place in Glasgow. This was back in 2013, and we had all of the kind of best and greatest music students. So we had, you know, we tried to kind of combine these things in a weekend of a variety of different formats, some of which were open, some of which were closed rehearsals. And since then, I've been just kind of etching away slowly at how I can create the biggest possible impact in the shortest possible amount of time, how I can be as effectual as possible and as helpful as possible to as many people as possible. And You know, I definitely don't get that right all the time, but I definitely am dedicated to it and try. And I was resistant for a long time to actually starting a foundation, because the world of charities and of education generally, it can be quite a competitive world, and a lot of people are really always fighting for resources and for their corner. And I valued so much my kind of impartiality. It was a case of I could work with such a wide variety of people and not be tied to any one philosophy. But I think we've managed a way to actually start a foundation and maintain that impartiality and maintain really active and positive relationships with so many different people. So our mainstay activity is in the form of workshops, which host hundreds of students of all levels and also teachers. So we've had like an average of 70 teachers at each workshop. And I could obviously talk about that for the whole half an hour, which I will not do. I'll stop talking about it now.
Already, clearly, it's had such an amazing impact on what's going on in the country. And I'm going to resist asking you anything about the state of music education, because we'll probably be here for hours and hours with that question.
Yeah.
One other thing I was going to ask you, and before I do, I want to encourage some of our students, please do put your hands up, and now's your moment to ask any burning questions. But I was going to ask you, do you find it difficult to balance, because obviously you've got a very busy career on the stage, and that takes a lot of energy, and also education teaching takes an awful amount of energy, and do you find they feed off each other, or how do you find that balance for yourself?
I mean, I hear a lot of people say that they find that teaching helps their playing, and I do definitely find that the way that I'm thinking is definitely affected. Like I find that I'm more able to kind of analyze things, but the experience of the workshop itself, or anything to do with the foundation, I truly often find that after I come to my instrument and I kind of feel like, how am I going to do this rehearsal tomorrow? Because my brain and everything just feels like it's been kind of like ripped out of me, and just it's a different kind of spending of energy. And yeah, I find it actually quite tricky, but you know, everything gets easier with practice. So it would never deter me from doing it, because it's hard.
Yeah. So I'm not seeing any hands up. Everybody's being very shy. So I'm going to go to, we have a couple of questions that have come in actually from audience. And one of them is actually quite an interesting one. I wanted to just ask you. It's from a man called Martin Smith, who came on Facebook, and he's asking about compositions and how do you, so in all the repertoire you play, how do you decide what new works you're going to play? And is that generally done through commissions with organizations, or how do you team up with composers? What's your kind of way of doing that when you do a new work?
I mean, generally to decide what you play is like it's a very kind of pragmatic process of the concert hall, the orchestra, and yourself, like, what can you offer? What do they want to program? You and I know about that from RSNO. But with regards to like new commissions, they've all been really personal, very personal, actually. With James Macmillan, John Tavener, Wynton Marsalis, and now coming up, Mark Simpson, Arlene Sierra. Also, all of these people they're people that I personally knew and know and love dearly. So I don't know, for me things are really about people so much. Like I'm
and do you think
I find it difficult to really get to something without having a sense of that person.
Do you feel, you know, you've got an amazing repertoire that you have, a violin repertoire, you know, it's huge. And how, do you feel you need to keep adding to that, or are you kind of comfortable with just delving in with, you know, there's so much from the 19th, 20th century for you to get your hands on? Is that enough for you?
I mean, well, I think we all feel like we want to expand and develop repertoire all the time, but like I mean, I don't know if you, like all of you guys, all the students, you feel that you hear certain things about the amount of repertoire that you should have learnt by a certain point, or you hear stories about this person has played X number of concertos and you have to like there's somehow kind of certain set ideals of what should be done, and I always fell behind that. You know, when I was like 15, 16, started performing publicly already, and my repertoire was absolutely tiny, and everybody was saying, don't go out there, you know, you're not ready because you don't have 25 concertos under your belt, and like stay quiet until you do. And that resulted in a lot of scrambling to be prepared enough for concerts, a lot of like just like years of mistakes of some kind, you know, like not feeling prepared when I was on stage, or you know, playing pieces before they were ready. But I somehow, like, I scrambled through it basically. And I don't know, I think it takes a long time, or it took me a long time anyway, to just be at peace with my pace. Like, it's going to take me a certain amount of time to learn something and to feel comfortable with it. And also I've just over time also tried to determine what it is that I need in order to be comfortable within exposing something to a load of strangers that are out there, you know, in an audience. And that process is something like, you know, just whether it be playing it through with a piano to a few friends, or like recording it, or whatever it may be that you feel you need as like a protective barrier almost before you then go out there and expose it to people. I think it just is a process of working out what's right for you, and there's no right or wrong.
Great, okay. I'm going to bring in Chris, our head of strings, who I think has got a question.
Hi there.
Excellent, well done. Somebody asked you a question.
Thanks for working with us today and joining in.
I can't see you though. How can I see you? Oh, there you are. Yes. Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about a daily routine. We're all obviously stuck in our various flats and houses at this time, and one can only practice for so long. But I'm wondering if you'd like to share some thoughts about how we might develop musically, or even just in terms of well-being, aside from actually physically playing our string instruments.
Yeah, it's I don't know if I'm any kind of example to follow, but I'm like so many people, I'm trying my best. Of course, like, we all come in such different shapes and sizes, especially in our relationship to discipline and our relationship to improving on anything. And so like I was just saying about repertoire, I think it is so personal, and there's a lot of online motivational stuff, and I'm totally guilty of some of that myself. Like, you've got, like, we just did this little Learn Salut d'Amour by Elgar, and I did a lesson a day for a week, and it was, you know, I was giving, like, you know, what I would do if I just had 1 hour of practice, and oh, you've got to practice like this and do this and do that. So I'm totally guilty of that, like, encouragement of the motivation. But I think it's about finding that personal balance of both. I think you can put a lot of pressure on yourself to feel like, oh, well, this is a chance to get under my belt the things that I couldn't do when I was living my normal, you know, existence. But I a couple of friends, well, one in particular, I remember, she's a really successful musician, an amazing person, a musician, and she always, she said that a massive life-changing moment for her was when she actually set tasks for herself per day that were the minimal of what she wanted to achieve, but she knew she could definitely achieve without disappointing herself. I wish I was capable of really taking that advice. I'm pretty bad at doing it, but I do try. Like, if it's just these 3 things that I manage this day, I can live with myself for that, and I'm not going to be in a state of procrastination or disappointment. And for me, that's one of the things that I battle with the most is wasting time on that type of emotion, which is just, I should have, I wish I had, what if I had, you know, all of that type of stuff. And when it comes to actual routine and practice, I mean, for me, like if I can be in the right state of mind, and not be distracted by all the other things that I'm doing and being asked to do, I try to kind of ring fence certain ideas. One is a much more kind of repetitive, I'm going to just, oh my goodness, did that just go off?
Yeah, that's better.
Am I back again?
Yeah.
I don't know what, I've got my phone on Do Not Disturb. I don't know why that happened. I'm really sorry. But oh yeah, one is a kind of repetitive, much colder hearted, just like, okay, for the next 30 minutes, there's some certain exercise or a certain something. I'm just going to do that repetitively and not invest myself too much in it. And then the flip side is one that's total experimentation. Like nobody, no method, no teacher, no other person knows how I actually feel and how I could improve in this thing. So I'm literally going to try anything. And I start like just grabbing ideas from all around and trying stuff that's totally unconventional. You know, and you look at almost all of the greatest instrumentalists and all of the greatest musicians, they found their own path and their own way. You know, they didn't fit in to any mold, and that's what made them so great. So.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that. It's really helpful. It's funny when there's so many days with no structure, and you know, and I like the idea of creating, you know, achievable goals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a challenge. Massive challenge.
Can I ask, Nikki, can I just ask a follow-on question to that? Obviously, we've got a lot of students listening in here who have be at various stages of their development and will be working on, you know, repertoire to go on stage and dealing with all of the emotions and fears of being in front of an audience. And you, when you perform, you're incredibly natural. You seem like you just come on stage and you're yourself. It seems, and you kind of, when you speak very naturally as well, like you just seem at home. And is that something you have had to think much about, or is it just you've been doing it for such a long time? Or sorry, is there any advice you can give to other violinists or players who are listening in about how you can deal with that?
Well, if that's how I'm coming across, like maybe 20% of the time do I really feel like I'm in the driver's seat. I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm calm, at peace with myself. I guess you could say confident. The rest of the time I'm in like some fluctuation of like all kinds of other emotions and fights, you know, making sure that like doubt or question or whatever, or tension or anything related to fear is not taking a hold. And just because I do get up on stage, you know, like over 100 times a year, and I'm out there, it doesn't mean that I'm not dealing with all of that stuff. So that's the first thing to say, is that assume that most people find playing your instrument that you have been trying to perfect in a room by yourself in front of people it's a difficult thing to do, and most people find it quite a challenge, and somewhat like pressured or nerve-wracking. But like I think what you're saying about actually being at home with yourself, I mean, there's no single more important relationship to try to cultivate. And the difficulty, and this is like something I'd really love to say to everybody, because the difficulty with classical music or with any kind of music study that's really detail oriented, there's thousands of bits of information that you're constantly being fed, and lots of things that you shouldn't do, and a million more things that you should do. It's like an overwhelming and can be a suffocating amount of stuff. Our big challenge is to, like, with every bit of information we receive, you then counter that with something that is just as wholesome as possible, as positive as possible, and is just like an exercise in being generally comfortable and like kind of solidifying that sense of self. And I don't want to sound really sort of airy-fairy about it, but if I could turn back time, I would match all of the information that I was desperate to get a hold of, like how to play better. Somebody has to tell me more and more and more stuff in order to know for sure how to play better. But playing and music is like a mystical, magical thing anyway. And it depends so much on your mind feeling quite free. And if your mind is free and in a more confident state, things just infuse better and work better and they flow better. So to constantly, like, of course, be curious about information and try to learn as much as you can. But if you're not always matching that with like a deepening of your own confidence and just like comfort with yourself, it's the information, what's it for? Like, actually, in the end, what percentage of audiences really care about the note being just exactly like this versus that? Like, it's negligible. Whereas if you're on stage giving something to people in a way that's like, this is what I mean, and this is like a serious message that I believe in, and it's convincing, like, people don't hear all the small stuff if that is really powerful. It's hard to do, but like you have to address both things simultaneously all the time.
Fantastic. Okay. So we have a question from Catherine Yates. Gonna come in.
Very formal, Mum. Thank you. Sorry, look, it looks as if I'm in the dark. It's just I've been staring at a screen all day, so I'm resting my eyes with no electric light on. It's great. I just wanted to ask, and it's so interesting what you're saying. If it's not too private or personal a question, do you have any particular sort of last rituals that you go through before going out on stage? You know, just those last few 5 minutes or so when you know the overture is coming to an end or whatever, and you're about to go out there and do your thing.
Yeah, the favorite moment of my life when I hear the overture, clapping start. I mean, yes, like a lot of things that I do, but they're hard to kind of describe because they're so internal. But I mean, I have basic routine, which is that I'm fully ready about half an hour before I play, and that I'm really warm. So I will grab any kind of thing that's warm, whether that's putting my hands under hot water or like a little heater. I usually travel with a hairdryer as well, because if I'm under pressure in any way or nervous in any way, my hands get very cold. And then with those 10 minutes before, like basically what I'm trying to do is lower my center of gravity, which sounds really non-specific, but if you actually focus on that, it changes absolutely everything in how you feel. So I am quite a kind of I would say I have quite a high center of gravity. I'm like quite a like energetic and sort of a little bit not frenetic, but I can have that nervousness sometimes. So I'm just trying to and kind of breathing quite shallow and everything feeling quite kind of high and not connected to the ground. So those 10 minutes before I go out on stage, I'm actually trying to like pull myself down into the ground. And of course I do that through like sinking into the string. How can I get to a point where this hand doesn't feel like it's like holding the bow up and lifted like this, but like I can actually trust the fact that once it goes into the string, it has somewhere to kind of settle down onto. And the same thing with my left hand, that it's just there's a kind of a trust there. And then like if I have a certain thing that would happen to me before I go on stages, that I'll kind of like just generally like squeeze around here, which I don't think I'm unique in that experience. I think a lot of violinists and violists feel that. And therefore, like, I'm just trying to convince myself that I don't have to do that. And the last thing that I would say is that I've only in the last year or two, I've developed a thing of just having really clear, totally easy to like understand, absorb and remember and repeat 2 or 3 things that I would say to myself. And they would differ depending on what I'm playing, but they're really, really clear things. And they can, I mean, you hear lots of people saying, don't say something like, don't make mistakes, or don't mind mistakes, because the word mistakes gets in your mind. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's what people say. But something like, I can't even think now, because I kind of change them up all the time, but they have to be personal to you. Like, tell a story to people, for example, something that's really clear like that. So when you're then go on, you play those first few notes, you're playing them in a way like you're really, like I right now, I'm really trying to convince you of what I'm saying. I'm trying to say it in a way that's just, I'm trying to make sure you understand what the feeling is that I'm trying to convey. And so I would then try to start a concerto with playing in a way that's like I'm trying to convince you of a story, for example. So yeah, those are, like, in summary, those are the things that I would try to do before going on stage.
That's really interesting.
Thanks, Nikki. I'm going to bring in Jacob Barnes, who's one of our students, who I think has got a question for you.
Hi there.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. I just had a question kind of in a similar vein to the previous ones. I just wonder, like, on your experience, kind of looking back on your experience of learning the violin, is there anything you kind of would have changed about how you practiced? I know, say, example, that you wished you had or hadn't, like, kind of spent 5 hours a day practicing scales or something similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have practiced less. I mean, not like over all the years, but between the ages of, say, 15 and 25, I would have practiced a bit less and practiced differently. I was extremely I'm not ambitious, that like gives a really bad impression of me, but you know, like ambitious within my practice, like very determined. I would get into total like states of like, well, I can't get this right, and then repeat, and just very intense when I was practicing, and relentless, like just repeat stuff ad nauseum. And I look back on, I reckon I could take away hundreds of those hours and end up at least the same, if not maybe even a little bit better, if I had instead worked on the thing that I was mentioning before, which is like, I'm fine as myself playing from beginning to end of this piece. If not everything that I intend to do happens in the way that I intended, like everything's going to be fine. It's not the end of the world. So I would have tried to readdress better my overview and my emotional connection to playing, and tried to practice a lot more trust in myself. Because if I look now at what I would like to change or improve, or what could be better, it's all state of mind. There's nothing that I feel violinistically that when my mind is right, I can't do. So I hope that doesn't sound like arrogant. Obviously, there's millions of things that I can't do, like I don't have a very good upward staccato or whatever. But out of the things that I really want to be able to do, like the pieces of music that I focused on and the repertoire that I choose to play, that I think I can give, you know, some justice to, within that area, none of that can I not do, provided I'm in the right state of mind, you know. And from doing the hundreds of masterclasses that I've done literally all corners of the earth, that's the one thing that I would say is the most like prevalent, is the most recurring, is people doubting themselves whilst they're playing. And I don't think people work on that enough young enough.
Can I ask, there's an interesting question in relation to that's come in from someone called Pia on Facebook, which is about, have you had any bad performance experiences? And if that happens to you, how do you deal with that in the moment, I guess, if that happens to you?
I mean, is that question a joke? Of course I have had so many bad experiences on stage. Oh my goodness. I mean, I've like been playing full on since I was, 15 or 16. I mean, when I was 16, I did already like 90 concerts that year or something stupid. So, I can't tell you the number of times that I've been on stage thinking I don't quite know how I'm going to get to the end of this. It's been a good while since, it's been many years since I came off stage like distraught, truly distraught, but that has happened to me very many times. And I would say the hardest has been, I've had the experience a couple of times when my relationship to a piece of music has been very, very tortured. And again, I would put so much of that down to like state of mind, pieces that, my physicality hasn't changed all that much between the ages of 24 and now, but this exact same piece of music I play now really easily, and had such a hard time with back then. And the hardest experiences I have ever had, and it's happened to me a couple of times, is being on a tour where you are booked to do 8 concerts with someone, and that first concert goes a certain way that you're not comfortable with or happy with, and you have to just keep going out on stage. And the overcoming of what seems kind of like an impossible hurdle that you then have to, you've just got to try to work out a way, or you run and hide. I mean, people do cancel things, that happens. And I've had experiences in the past where I've wondered if actually that would be the right thing to do. So I have been, my experiences have been from the absolute worst case scenario to the best case scenario and everything in between. But I'm very happy to report that as I've grown older, that I've never stopped believing that I can overcome things and that I can improve. And I've never stopped fighting to be better. And I would say that, the last 4 years of performing have been the best that I've done yet. And within those 4 years, I would say each year is an improvement. So, we all, such a tiny percentage of people have a smooth ride, generally speaking, and it's just a case of accepting certain things about your weaknesses and deciding, am I resolved to bettering myself? Somebody said to me once, like it was a kind of psychological conversation I was having with a friend, and we were talking about whether it's possible to be a good or a bad person. I mean, it was like a really philosophical discussion, and he was just saying that the only thing that you can commit to with regards to yourself is to continuous improvement of who you are, and the same is true for playing. So that's my vow.
Thanks, Nikki. We're going to have to draw to close fairly soon, but I think we've probably time for one more question. I know Alyssa Burns wants to come in with a question, so I'll let you come in now.
Hi.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I don't know if it's a bit of a cliched question, but I was wondering, what's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Probably accept your gift. And that's not to say like in a way that is somebody that's gifted or not gifted. It's just the thing that is just you. That's as unique to you as like how your face looks or how your hands are built or whatever. There are so many things that are unique to you. And I think we all struggle with just a total acceptance of that. I have a friend who told me that so seriously when I was maybe in my early 20s. And it was not put to me in like a light way. It was put to me in a way of like, you have to actually invest in that and work at that in a serious way, not in a kind of, you know, flippant way. It's not a secondary thing. And then I would say the second general thing, which is not a piece of advice that I've been given, but it's that I think we're all happiest when we have some mundane routine, and that actually to learn, to study something, to do some form of like just kind of labor, I guess, like some form of work that is just, you do it because I just think that we're basically happier when we do that type of thing. And I don't think we should ever think about it too much or analyze it too much. We should just do something that's active and useful and constructive, like every day, with the exception of some days when you literally can't move because you're too tired or whatever, you're not well, you know. So I would say those two bits of advice. I hope that's, you know, helpful and clear.
I think that's a really good way to end with that really wonderful advice. Can I just say thank you on behalf of all of us for sharing your time. It's really, really great to have you joining us, and it's great to hear you talking. I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in to listen as well. And what's going to happen now, we'll go straight into the stream of the masterclass. And for those of you who don't know what it is, let me just tell you, it's so two of our students, so Didier, who's going to play Bach's Partita number 1, and Magdalena Riedl, who's going to work on the first movement of Sibelius violin concerto. So thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye.
Can I just quickly say a thank you, or am I being cut off?
No, I think you're still here.
Okay, great. No, I just wanted to say, like, I can't see all of this because I'm on my phone, so I can't like scroll across them all without completely interrupting the thing. But I just want to thank you all for being here, and that I hope to meet you like actually properly at some point. And good luck with this period of time, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Nikki, and good luck yourself. And once you log out, if you want to join the masterclass, it'll be on a separate stream that you can log into.
Thank you, Manus.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Bye.